When I was a kid, there were a bunch of movies that really like stood out. Mars Needs Moms, Minutemen, Sky High, all of these being classic 2000s films. But one has stayed in my head, taunting me because I didn't remember the name. And I always brought it up in conversation and nobody knew what the fuck I was talking about. And they told me I was crazy. I'm not fucking crazy. So I'm here to put it to rest. This is Dennis the Menace, a movie about a kid who wants to kill his fucking neighbor, who's also a pirate.
That pirate's called
Arr! As the name implies, the kid is a menace. I mean, just looking at him sends shivers down me timbers. Arr! But the movie starts out with Dennis barreling down the street a million miles an hour on his bicycle, dragging a little wagon with snakes and crickets and some sort of mechanism back there. He's got like a million loose wires connected to a slinky, so I don't know what that's about. But I did hear that there was like a redacted movie poster. It was like Dennis, the full-time menace, part-time electrician, so maybe that has something to do with it. But as soon as Mr. Wilson, which is Dennis's neighbor, hears him barreling down the street, he looks petrified. He's absolutely frozen in place. And then he runs inside and tries to fake being sick so that Dennis will leave him alone. Because Mr. Wilson is absolutely terrified of this child.
Hey, Mr. Wilson!
So right off the bat, God knows what this kid has done to this old man. For him to activate his fight or flight reflexes and choose flights against a 5-year-old? I don't know what he did, but if you live around this kid, lock your fucking doors. Because Dennis just barged right into the house. And honestly, he just started like roasting him while checking up on him.
Wow. His heart sounds like our washing machine. Oh no, he's growing extra skin.
Hey Doc. Hey Morty. Just wanted to come in. Just get a routine inspection. Okay, let's just check your heart rate really quick. That sounds a little bit weird. Kinda sounds like a LG WM3600H. Is that some sort of like heart condition? Or... No, it's my washing machine. Okay. Okay, breathe in for me. Breathe out. Okay, what the fuck? And then Dennis decides to torment Mr. Wilson a little bit more by shoving a flashlight in his nose and in his mouth. And he eventually decides that Mr. Wilson needs an aspirin. And tries to feed Mr. Wilson the aspirin. But since Mr. Wilson is pretending, he just shuts his mouth and doesn't let Dennis put the pill. So obviously, Dennis pulls out his slingshot and shoots the pill down Mr. Wilson's throat. You might be wondering how he does this. Mr. Wilson's obviously awake. Why did he open his mouth? I don't fucking know, dude. Ask him. Oh, he's fucking dead? He choked to death on that aspirin? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, you know what? Let's get a this would result in death and or serious harm counter up on screen. So that's one. Then Dennis kind of just took off, ran the fuck home, acted like nothing happened.
You didn't bother him, did you?
Nope.
Until Mr. Wilson ended up calling his parents and, you know, told them of the attempted murder that just went on in his own home. And then his parents ended up taking a slingshot. Then when the dad started taking off for work, Mr. Wilson was outside and told him to start beating Dennis.
See, when my old man had something important to tell me, he told me with his belt.
But then the dad was like, nah, I'm good.
That's not how I deal with my son, Mr. Wilson.
And Mr. Wilson got all grumpy and started spouting about his garden club to his wife.
We're due at the garden club at 9.
Today is an important day for me, and I'm already in a lather because of that kid.
Which I'm gonna say right now is the sweetest old lady ever. Real BOGO gang members, which is what I call my subscribers, know that to be part of the BOGO gang, you have to text something nice to your grandma at the end of my videos. You already know I'm a certified grandma lover, an old lady connoisseur, if you will. I don't know, they just hold a special place in my heart. Like, I just love like little sweet old lady. And Mrs. Wilson is not an exception. She is so sweet, and she always knocks Mr. Wilson down a couple pegs.
Now, don't get your hopes. There are lots of other gardens in town, just as nice as yours.
You'll see in a bit. Mr. Wilson tells her how it's supposed to be his big day because he's going to be receiving the Garden Club Award for the best garden in town because of this plant.
Who else has a night-blooming mock orchid flowering this year?
A night-blooming mock orchid flower that only opens once in 40 years and then dies immediately after like 10 seconds.
There isn't a gardener in town who has a plant that requires a 40-year investment for 10 seconds of splendor.
And right after telling Mrs. Wilson, she calls it,
It's an awfully homely looking plant, George.
that ugly ass plant, boy. Wimpy ass plant. Can we get Dennis over here to shoot an aspirin down my throat? Cause looking at this plant is giving me a headache. Dennis gets dropped off at his babysitter's place, which is where we get to meet Margaret and Joy, which are the other kids in the film. I'm not gonna talk about them too much because they're kids, and I'm not gonna sit here and be like, what are you, like fucking 5? You are 5? But I will talk about things that relate to the plot, like how Margaret tricked Joey into kissing her doll's bare butt cheeks.
Close your eyes. Kiss me.
And the rest of the movie, she calls him Rump Kisser and Hot Lips. And in every scene, he goes from smiling, absolutely having the time of his life, to just dead-faced anger. Totally important to the plots, and definitely not something I just found really fucking funny. They wanted to build a fort.
We're gonna make a fort.
And they find this dilapidated treehouse in the forest.
It looks kind of junky.
Just straight up rusty screws jutting out, rotting wood. Honestly, not dangerous enough. I think Dennis should come in, maybe run a couple live wires through the place, play a little bit of electrical limbo. But we then cut to the Garden Society where Mr. Wilson wins the competition.
George Wilson!
He's gonna be the host of this year's annual garden party, and it takes place in his garden. And then right after that, we cut to the spookiest, most terrifying intro for anybody I have ever seen. Riding an open train with bloodshot eyes and rotting teeth is a man named Switchblade Sam.
Ain't that a pretty sight? I bet they don't even lock that door.
Switchblade Sam is the main villain of this movie, and oh my god, he's a great fucking villain. He's absolutely terrifying. I'm pissing my pants right now, which is exactly what the producers asked for, if I'm being honest, because there's no way that this character came to life without the producers being like, make sure this guy gets us a bunch of complaints about soaked carpets, because if parents aren't calling in about kids pissing their pants when they see him, someone's getting an aspirin to the throat. He's actually fucking terrifying. Like, he's literally so fucking, he's a scary ass guy, okay? For now, he doesn't do anything. He's just out there, like, hanging out, I guess. But I just want you guys to know that he's out there. You know, he's prowling the streets, tumbling down hills, and definitely not taking care of his dental hygiene. Because, holy shit, dude, maybe start flossing. That's all I'm saying. Now it's the next day, and the kids are up in the treehouse again. They're putting even more nails into the forts.
Count of 3. Move your hand. 1, 2.
Forts, what reason? I don't know. Honestly, I think it was just an excuse for Dennis to try and smash Joey's finger.
This time on the count of 4.
But uh-oh, Switchblade Sam found the forts. And uh-oh, Switchblade Sam took a baby doll. And Margaret is torn up about this. Obviously, she's been robbed. So she does her best Walter White impression, and then Switchblade Sam makes his getaway.
I've been robbed.
But not before he turns around and starts fucking the bridge.
Maybe a bear ate it. What? Yeah, there's no.
I don't know what he's doing. I'm not sure what the direction was for this part of the movie, but something tells me the director wasn't like, okay, Chris, so this scene you're gonna be on the bridge. Okay, so I want you to just act creepy, act weird. Okay, fuck the bridge. Fuck the bridge, sexual style. Yes, Chris. And if that was the direction, they're fucking right. They're so right, because Are you serious? Like, that's the scariest robber there is. No competition whatsoever. Dude, imagine this, right? You're walking late at night, you know, you're walking down the street on your lonesome, a little stroll. A guy comes up to you, takes your wallet, and then fucks a bridge.
Yoink. Whoa, 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 hey, give it back.
Oh.
No, I said give it back, not fuck a crack.
I think that's the scariest set of events that could happen. At that point, it's like, you can have my wallet, but like, maybe don't have your way with a bridge right in front of me. I don't know. I don't know. What the fuck do you say to that? One of the biggest reasons I think that Switchblade Sam is so intimidating is the music that accompanies him in every scene that he's in. It's this uncanny music paired with his disheveled look. He looks fucking terrifying. I mean, he looks fucking terrifying. My carpet is soaked. And I'm 18. If Spinning Monkeys came on whenever he walked in, I'd be like, okay, this guy's a silly guy that fucks bridges, you know, probably cuddles afterwards, meets the bridge's parents, settles down with the bridge, you know, he's gonna spoil his grand bridging. But when Switchblade Sam walks in with that music, it's like, damn, that guy fucks bridges, jackhammer style, OSHA nowhere in sight, no protection, and he's not calling you back, okay? He's gonna make you a single bridge. And then where are you gonna end up? Living under a bridge. What would that even be? You're gonna end up living under a person. So stupid. Dennis wants to paint his fort, so he gets some paint from the garage, but he notices the slingshot that his parents took away from him after he bludgeoned Mr. Wilson's throat. But when he went to reach it, the paint splattered everywhere. Hard cut. This is a babysitter that they hired. Actually, the only one that was willing to babysit Dennis because everybody else fears him. She'll come back later, but for now, just remember she exists. Dennis tries to vacuum up the paint, which granted works, but then he launches the concoction of paint and wood straight into Mr. Wilson's grill. Which he then puts into his grill. And if this was real life, he would die of death and lead poisoning, probably. So let's add that to the board. Then later on at night, Mr. Wilson goes to investigate Dennis's garage because he thinks that Dennis had something to do with his burger being poisoned.
I'm going to investigate Mitchell's garage. Dennis has been fooling around with paint, I know it, and I'm gonna prove it.
Meanwhile, the babysitter from earlier is just hardcore making out with this dude. He's kicking around, boots polished to a gleam, and Dennis was just watching and smiling in the shadows. But Dennis decides to go outside and ding-dong ditch them while they're hanging out.
That's it.
Which they get super annoyed with, to the point where the guy leaves a fucking trap for Dennis. He adds a thumbtack to the doorbell like a psychopath, and then they plan on just full-on home aloning Dennis. The guy has like a bucket of flour ready, the babysitter has a pot of water. It's about to go down. Literally. She's on the second floor, and you know, the bucket of water, if you like throw it, like the water is gonna... While all of that is happening, Mr. Wilson is inspecting the garage and finds the vacuum that Dennis used to launch the poison paint patty at Mr. Wilson's grill. And while messing around with the vacuum, he sucks up this golf ball and just blasts his butthole. It was bananas. The butthole blasting was bananas. He came crawling to the front of the house and he goes to ring the doorbell, but as you remember, it was booby trapped with a thumbtack, so he gets stabbed. Quite brutally, might I add. He shoved his whole ass thumb into that needle. And as soon as he rings the bell, he gets hit with everything. Water to the dome, flour to the also dome. And when the guy notices that it was the neighbor, he just closes the door on him.
Sorry. Good night.
So Mr. Wilson goes home, drenched, covered in flour, humiliated, butthole absolutely destroyed. That thing's probably in smithereens. Mr. Wilson's butthole will so need medical attention because he is fucking old. I know that a tennis ball to the ass is probably not good for a senior. A senior butthole? What the fuck? Yeah, a senior butthole. What do you call a Mexican butthole? Fucking senior butthole. Oh my god. Okay, back to the script. Holy shit. And so the next day, Dennis goes over to apologize with a little card. So he goes upstairs to put the card next to Mr. Wilson's beard trimmer, but he finds his fake teeth. Then he ends up playing with them, but he ended up snapping the front 2 teeth off, and they just plopped right down the drain. Also, forgot to mention the fact that today is Mr. Wilson's big photo day for the big garden committee paper, so it's about to be a rough picture day. Then Dennis races home and pulls out this, and when Mr. Wilson gets ready for the photograph, he looks a fool with a battered butthole. Some stuff happens with the mom's work, so they have to send her to Oklahoma, and the dad is also away on business. I kind of forgot what happened. Something like that. The dad is away on business, and no one will be home to watch Dennis, so they have to flip through this phone book, going through everybody in town to see if anybody will take Dennis. But, surprise, surprise, nobody wants to babysit him. And since it's a montage, I paused on one of the clips, and there's a guy with a broken arm, and he's just laughing hysterically. So I think they're implying that Dennis demolished this random guy's arm. I don't know what that's about, but I honestly wouldn't put it past him. But eventually they get to the last page of the phone book, and the very last name in there is the Wilson.
You call.
To which they say yes, specifically Mrs. Wilson. I know I haven't given her much screen time. She's honestly such a sweetheart, and she's one of the few people in town that likes having Dennis around, and that Dennis doesn't like really torment too much. But Dennis gets dropped off by his parents.
Hey, Mr. Wilson! I'm sleeping at your joint!
And he immediately gets stuck inside since it's raining.
I sure not allowed to do around the house when it's raining out.
And he starts bugging Mr. Wilson.
Is that pirate's code?
Dennis keeps bugging him about a bunch of like little random stuff, specifically about why he has a bookshelf fault and what the code to open it is. But through this exchange we learn a couple of things. We learn that Mr. Wilson keeps gold in his vault, and we learn that the password to the safe is his home address. Important to the plot, so just keep that in mind. It's now later on in the night, and Dennis is taking a bath, sprinkler mode fully activated, because he's launching water everywhere.
Coming round the mountain, let she come! Mountain, let she come!
And when he goes to brush his teeth, he finds Mr. Wilson's nasal spray.
Cool! Old Faithful!
And he just starts shooting it everywhere, to the point where he empties it. So obviously, he fills that baby to the brim with mouthwash. But now the mouthwash is gone. So he grabs the toilet cleaner. The thing to like clean toilets. The thing with like a lot of harsh chemicals in there to wipe shit off of your toilet. He grabs that and pours it into the mouthwash can. Which is so fucking evil. This is the second time he's been like, another day, another poisoned item for Mr. Wilson. Oh, and for John's parents, I know you guys watch this together, and anybody over the age of like 19, and probably anybody in the future, that is a reference to a really popular meme right now. So I'm not insane or like just really dumb and making stupid voices in my room. I'm just on my phone too much. So back to the video. Then Mr. Wilson walks into the bathroom and slips. He's fallen and he can't get up. And he ends up hitting the nastiest split ever. His pajamas are torn. I mean, hamstrings are pulled. Butthole is still not looking good. Then he goes to use his mouthwash. And burns every fucking receptor in his mouth. He's not tasting anything ever again. And then he uses the nasal spray, and then he started getting groovy. Whoa, throw that ass back, Mr. Wilson. But yeah, those are definitely going up on the board. That's brutal, Dennis. Matter of fact, put $1 million on the board. Put $2 million on the board. It's the next day now, and Mr. Wilson is looking for some lanterns for his big garden party. While Dennis watches, Dennis is watching porn.
Smokes, you gotta be pretty brave to ride on a tiger in your underpants.
Put that away.
Then Dennis dumps a bunch of marbles on the floor, and then he starts playing with a rope that suspends this kayak on the roof. And then Mr. Wilson gets grumpy and starts walking off.
Martha, where are the GD garden lanterns?
Only to start slipping and sliding on all of the marbles. And with all that movement, the rope gets undone, dropping the kayak. Almost demolishing Mr. Wilson's pecker. His pecker almost got fucking pancaked. Dude, he was 3 inches away from a pancaked pecker. This summer, pancaked pecker meets battered butthole. Bad news. Other than Mr. Wilson's injuries, Dennis's mom is stuck in Oklahoma.
Hello, Martha. It's Alice. I'm still in Oklahoma.
So the Wilsons are gonna have to watch Dennis during their garden party. And Mrs. Wilson is an absolute sweetheart about it.
Get home when you can. We'll be just fine here.
And Mr. Wilson is not.
Over my dead body. This is the crowning moment of my retired life, and I'm not throwing it away like the evening trash for some ninny who can't get her keister to the airport on time.
Which, honestly, is pretty valid. I literally can't even blame him for being a grouch. Every scene that they share, Mr. Wilson ends up fucking injured. Something is always happening to Mr. Wilson. His pecker was almost pancaked, for God's sake. I've never said for God's sake in my entire life. But for God's sake, this man's pecker was almost pancaked, okay? I need you to understand the severity, okay? This man's pecker was almost pancaked. The next day, all the guests are arriving, and Mr. Wilson tells Dennis to keep his delinquency to a minimum.
This is an important event for me, Dennis.
I know.
I don't want any nonsense. You mind whatever manners you have and don't make a pest of yourself.
But Dennis, being Dennis, doesn't give a fuck. He sees a button next to the garage, so he pushes it and knocks over all of the food.
I made a mistake.
So Dennis gets put inside. They put his ass in timeout, or I guess time in, since he's inside the house. And that's when we see Switchblade Sam. He finds the bookshelf vaults, opens it, and then scampers away with all of the gold. But he's also like loud as fuck. So Dennis like immediately hears him. So Dennis runs to figure out what's going on downstairs, only to find the empty vault. And then just as he was telling Mr. Wilson, the flower opened up.
Mr. Wilson! Somebody robbed your house!
And Mr. Wilson turned around and missed the blooming of the flower. And when he looked back, all he saw was a limp, dying plant. This made him go fucking crazy.
40 years down the drain.
Mr. Wilson absolutely went off on Dennis.
You're a pest, a menace, a selfish, spoiled little boy, and I've no use for you. You took something from me that I can never get back. Something that means more to me than you ever will. You understand? I don't want to see you. I don't want to know you. Get out of my way.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson.
Leading Dennis to run away from everyone. Dennis is now taken hostage.
These buds are pretty scary at night. I'm sure glad I ran into a grown-up.
And Switchblade Sam is thirsting over some beans. And Dennis, being Dennis, tells him that he can be useful with his slingshot if the cops show up or anything like that.
I've got a slingshot.
Swell.
I'm a real good shot. You wanna see?
And he tries showing Switchblade Sam how accurate of a shot he is. He ends up blasting him in the face with a rock. And then when Sam starts splashing water on his face to cool off the giant dent that this kid just left in his head, Dennis starts fucking with the fire because he calls it puny.
Fire's getting puny.
And he launches one of the burning hot coals into Sam's pantaloons. So he jumps into the water to put it out, and he ends up jumping into like a giant concrete block. We then cut to Mr. Wilson feeling bad about all of the shit he said to Dennis, having been the sole cause for getting Dennis robbed by a madman. And when we cut back to Dennis, Switchblade Sam is tying him up. But somebody wasn't a Boy Scout, because Dennis slips out of it really easily.
There's only one way to do it, and I know lots of people have tried to tie me up, but it doesn't work.
What do you do different?
He teaches Sam how to tie someone up and then goes a step further and teaches him how to handcuff someone to their own leg.
You can't get out of that at all, right?
Nope.
Told you.
But when he tries to get him out, he accidentally drops the handcuff keys into the pot of beans. The only way he thinks of to find the keys is to feed Switchblade Sam the beans until they find it. Which was a really weird scene to watch as a kid. Or I guess anybody, I think that's just a weird scene in general. But like, especially as a kid, watching another kid spoon feed a dirty old bum under a bridge. But eventually they get to the bottom of the pot, which by the way was a fucking massive pot of beans. Probably like 4 pounds of beans were eaten in between those like 2 cuts. But the key is nowhere in sight.
You must have swallowed it.
So he fucking ate the key. And they make him look absolutely disgusting in this scene. Belly out, soaked with sweats, absolutely covered in beans. Dental hygiene still nowhere in sight. And then Dennis decides to go get some firewood by the train tracks, but then he like drops it straight onto Sam's head.
Firewood, bombs away!
To which Sam gets completely knocked the fuck out. But he gets up. Somehow, 2 concussions and a burning hot coal to the butthole, and he is still standing. Dude, this movie is not a safe space for buttholes, okay, at all. But he gets up only to get a gold bar flung at his face. That is 3 separate head traumas in 3 minutes. How is he alive? I have no fucking clue. Dennis even like tucked Sam into bed, but the blanket gets caught on fire. And Sam erupts into flames. So Dennis starts beating him to death with his own backpack to put out the fire. Which doesn't work at all. He just beat him black and blue until he jumps in the water again to put out the fire. Meanwhile, everyone is out looking for Dennis. There's like a whole manhunt going on, and Mr. Wilson still feels terrible about telling Dennis all. Sam is fucking drowning. His hands are still handcuffed, and he's just bobbing up and down in the water. And then Dennis runs up to the train tracks and uses like a kind of convoluted way to save Sam. He uses the rope he had to attach to this pole, which he then drops through this little manhole to Sam so that he can pull himself up, seeing as how he has both sides of the rope. So he puts a leg through the rope and pulls himself onto shore. But that's when Dennis notices the gold in Sam's bag and realizes that Sam is a thief.
This is Mr. Wilson's score. How come you got it?
And then here's where things take a really dark turn and get really insane. Sam grabs his knife and tries to fucking kill Dennis.
Say your prayers, little rat.
And just as he's about to stab this literal child, a train comes by, catching the rope that was connected to the pole, which pulls Sam up through this manhole and just tightens the rope around his body. I'm surprised he didn't turn into a bean pinata, because that was a train that was pulling on a rope fastened to his body. His organs are definitely gone, but he ends up falling straight down onto the cement block, probably shattering his spine into a million pieces, and having the knife that he was going to use to kill Dennis land on his already fractured spine. Then Dennis rides his little bike home and hugs Mr. Wilson, who apologizes to him and tells him he can come over anytime.
Guess what?
What?
I got your gold back.
And in his little red wagon is a tied up, broken, burnt, damaged Switchblade Sam. Everybody hugs Dennis, absolutely happy and stoked that he's back, and Switchblade Sam gets sent off to jail.
And you can tell everybody at the big house you've met our Dennis Mitchell.
Or probably the hospital, because holy shit, that guy is fucked up. I mean, 2 massive yellow bumps on his head from the night before. If that's not a sign of like severe head trauma, I don't know what is. The Wilsons say how much they love Dennis after being the sole reason that he was kidnapped, and the movie ends with Mr. Wilson getting a flaming marshmallow to the face. I hope you guys enjoy that movie as much as I did. It was one of my all-time favorite movies as a kid, so I'm super excited to just share this with all of you. And a special thanks to all the BOGO gang members, the only gang on YouTube that actually commits federal crimes. If you want to be part of the BOGO gang, make sure to hit that subscribe button, text your grandma something nice for me, and shoot an aspirin down your neighbor's throat. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next week. I've been really busy these last couple of weeks, so I know this video is a little bit overdue, but I love making videos, and I love interacting with all of you. I love when you guys comment. I love replying to all of you, but ideally from now on, once a week, that's the goal. And I really appreciate you guys. Like, I'm so grateful for all of you. There's a lot of you now. Let me know what you guys think about the background. Just changed like a couple things. Added some sticky notes. Added some sticky notes because I wanted to like liven up the room a little bit. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.